I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you ever lost? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man. I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you ever lost? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man.
Congratulations, brother.
And here we go.
Hey, here we go. We're back at it again. It's episode 16 of a Hangar Hangout. And tonight we're going to do a little something different. Listen, we're in that time of the year where literally having a lot of football content to talk about is kind of sparse. So I wanted to go ahead and do something that was a little bit different. Over the last month or so, all we've been hearing is the talk of football in terms of individuals' feelings, emotions. It's gotten away from the facts, right? The facts, the data, the analytics, the actual stat lines of what it is to be a football player in the NFL. And I was very fortunate enough to come across an individual football fan and analytic on Twitter. He and I started chopping it up. Loved some of the work that he's been putting out there. And I wanted to go ahead and invite him to the show and just talk football with us. Before I bring him on, I want to make sure I'm making it clear. I have no clue what he is going to say when I ask him these questions. So literally we talked it up a little bit. I liked in regards to, again, how he analyzes data, how he analyzes quarterbacks and whatnot. And I felt to myself, you know what, bringing him in to talk about the AFC East quarterbacks just makes a lot of sense, right? Getting a gist from somebody who, one, is not an AFC East fan, right? So we're going to have a completely unbiased opinion in regards to what he thinks about the AFC East quarterbacks and the AFC. He's not even an AFC fan per se. He just loves quality football, and he's really, really keen on quarterback play. So tonight, we're going to have Nick Kehoe of Football Film Room. He is a data-driven analyst of the sport. He especially has love for the QB position, as I stated earlier, and what good QB play actually looks like. So we're going to go ahead and bring him on. He's going to talk about the AFC East QBs, AFC East QBs, as well as where they stack up and rank up in terms of the AFC in general. So without further ado, Nick. Hey, what's up, Nick? How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Man, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, man. Listen, I wanted to make sure it was clear. So you said before we were talking up, you're not a Jets fan, you're not a Dolphins fan, a Patriots fan, or a Bills fan. So who do you root for?
That's correct. I'm a Giants fan. It might be a little bit behind me. It's a picture of Leonard Marshall sacking Joe Montana from back in like 1985. But
okay.
As you said, I'm a big football fan. Quarterback fan. I played football in college. It was Division III, so hold your laughter. It was a real program. We had uniforms and shoulder pads and everything. It was really great. And then I spent about 5 years working on the NFL matchup show with Greg Cosell, Ron Jaworski, sort of learning the game from those guys. Spent a few years in NFL Network, and now running things at a Football Film Room.
Okay, listen, beautiful resume. Again, you're learning more as we're having conversations now because, again, we just started talking about some of the posts that you had. So, again, learning some more there. So, you said it's not real football. That's still real football. Division III football. If you played college level football, that's still high-level caliber football. I played high school. That's the peak of my football prowess.
So,
But, yeah, man, so, again, I love your stuff. Again, if you all of his Patreon, his Twitter, his website is in the description. I'm telling you, if you're an individual who actually just loves knowing the data behind it, right, the science behind it, he has some incredible breakdowns on his Twitter. I saw some incredible ones on his Patreon as well. Highly recommend you go ahead and jump on there, give him a follow. Again, you won't regret it. But Nick, I'm going to go ahead and put you right to the test, man. Listen, when it comes to the AFC East, we've got 4 different quarterbacks in 4 different varying stages of their careers. You got a guy in the Patriots and Drake May who's potentially might be the starter, but again, a rookie. You've got the old veteran and Aaron Rodgers, New York Jets quarterback. You've got the superstar guy in Josh Allen, who's been dominating over the last couple of years, been a top 3 guy. Then you've got a guy like Tua, who really came out last year, led the league in passing yards, really took that offense. I think they led the number 1 offense in all of football last year as well. But a lot of that, when you watch it in a nutshell, a lot of components come to play. There's defense, there's coaching, but we're going to talk about the quarterback specifically. So when it comes down to it, let's start with the big dog, right? So what does the data tell you about Josh Allen?
Well, with Josh Allen, I mean, he's a stud. You know, he's a physical talent. He's the most talented guy in the NFL when it comes to, you know, his ability to throw and run. He can run around guys, run through guys. He's so unique at the position. But to me, you know, the thing with Allen is you have to keep him on schedule. Despite the fact that he can make all these great plays, these Sports Center highlight plays, he's at his best when he's playing within the framework of the offense. And I think last year, what you saw when the Bills made the switch from Dorsey to Joe Brady was that they tried to get him to play more with a sense of timing, more getting the ball out of his hands quickly. They doubled their the frequency of screen usage, more throws behind the line of scrimmage, just getting him into a rhythm, just at the start of a game, getting the ball out of his hands. They increased the amount of their run game under Dorsey. I think they threw it about 63% of the time, and under Brady, it was down to 53% of the time. So again, that speaks to everything they were trying to do with controlling the ball. But I can't say his numbers were much better under Brady. I think the points per game for the Bills, they were, I think, 25.5 under Dorsey and 25.6 under Brady. Allen's numbers actually fell off a little bit under Brady, 62.4% completion percentage versus 70%. Yards per attempt were down, touchdowns were down, rating was down. The good news is that interceptions were down, and that's sort of a key component. A key thing with the Bills is they can't be turning the ball over. Their defense last year especially was really banged up. So that may have been a decision why they wanted to play that ball control offense. I think there were some jobs on the line as well. They sort of threw caution to the wind, and they were like, hey, we need to just throw Josh Allen into the running game. They actually increased how much he ran the ball. I think they had 20 design runs under Dorsey in 10 games for Josh Allen, and then they had 53 for Brady in the final 9. So that seemed to help the offense control the game, help the Bills control the game. They won more games even though their offense and Josh Allen weren't necessarily putting up bigger numbers. But I think we're gonna see a lot more of that this year. They've got a brand new receiving room pretty much, so I don't think they're going to be spreading it out quite as much as they were the first half of last year. Wouldn't be surprised to see that offense just run through those two tight ends, Kincaid and Dawson Knox. But again, Josh Allen's best games have been when he's under control, hitting his back foot and getting the ball out. Like you saw against the Dolphins probably in week 4 last year, even though that was under Dorsey. That was probably the best I've ever seen him play. And so they're going to try to replicate that this year, I think.
All right. So do you think the loss of a guy like a Stephon Diggs and, of course, Gabe Davis could potentially impact his overall statistical performance this year? Or do you think, like you said before, they won more games, are they going to go ahead and still stay at that level to where he might see a dip in production, but the team as a whole could potentially win some games?
Yeah, you could see a slight dip in production. Like I said, maybe they won't attempt to push the ball downfield quite as much. I think what they were doing last year in the second half, even with Diggs on the team, they weren't trying to necessarily phase him out specifically or anything like that. I think they were just more focused on playing to the scheme, right? If the coverage and the play tell you to throw to Gabe Davis or to throw to Kincaid, that's where Josh Allen was doing it. They weren't trying to emphasize getting the ball to Diggs a certain number of times. And that might be why they found him to be expendable this year. I know there are probably a bunch of other reasons off the field that we don't even know about, but you could see a slight dip. I mean, I think he's been around 4,300 passing yards every year for the last 4 years. Had the first year he had under 30 touchdown passes, but he finished with 51 total touchdowns if you include the playoffs. So he's still going to have a high level of production. It's just who's he going to go through. Big thing though is I do think they'll find a way to limit those turnovers, limit those interceptions, at least based on the personnel moves and what Brady was doing last year. That's kind of the way they want to play is that ball control style.
Okay. Well, that's telling. Josh Allen right now has been the big dog of the AFC East. I mean, they've won the division. I think it's 4 years in a row now. Maybe it's 3. The 3 or 4 years in a row. Either way, they've been the team to beat. Josh Allen being the biggest contributor to that. Their defense, I think, fell off quite a bit. But I mean, again, if their offense takes a step backwards, I guess you would have to assume the defense might go ahead and take a step forward or need to find a way to go ahead and keep games closer. But I, for one, have been looking at them, and I think to myself, the loss of weapons might impact Josh Allen in a negative way. But from what you're saying is you feel like potentially it could be a benefit to him in terms of being able to play within structure by having to force the ball downfield to a guy like a Stephon Diggs and to a Gabe Davis.
Right. I think that's why they probably felt comfortable moving on from those receivers. And, I know there were some salary cap issues there, but, they revamped that receiver room. Look, the chemistry there, it's going to take a little bit of time. That happens with every quarterback and new receiver room. But, the ones he does have the chemistry with, the two tight ends, I think that's where you'll see, most of the attention, most of the action.
Well, that sucks. I was really kind of hoping that he would struggle more, and the word on the street would be that he would be taking a step backwards. But all right, well, so be it.
Too good, the offense does run through him,
right?
And I think they're just trying to find a way to give him help because he's just been they've leaned on him so much. He's covered up for a lot of blemishes in the past, and they need to help him out this year.
Okay, well, very well. Not what I was hoping to hear, but again, I got you on here to go ahead and be unbiased and to give us the actual truth of what the data tells you.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. All right, well, before we go on to the next one, what's up, RJ Mack? Hawk, I see you in the building. Infrared, what's up, man? Nice to see you out here. Todd, love you guys. The support is awesome. Bernard Nixon, I see you out there. Dano, what's up, my boy? Dan Murphy, man, I know it's just a matter of time before you'd show up. Infrared again, Dano, Bernard. All right, guys, appreciate y'all for chopping it up with us. We're just talking AFC East quarterbacks. We just got done breaking down Josh Allen, what the data looks like. Dark Soldier was good, my boy. So now we're going to go ahead and go on to the next guy, right? So for me, Tua last year led the league in passing yards. We all know it. If you talk to any Tuaneers, they'll tell you he's the best quarterback in all of football. He should have won the MVP. He should be getting paid $60 million a year, et cetera, et cetera. And I hope for their sake he does get $60 million a year. I really hope that the Dolphins fans get exactly what they're asking for. But in terms of Tua in terms of Tua T, this is a guy who we saw struggle a little bit in his first couple of years. There was talk about him potentially being traded or moved on from before they went away from Flores and they brought in Mike McDaniel, who believes he can go ahead and work this offense around his skill set. Tua has since had a resurgence, right? You're talking about back-to-back years and where his numbers were impressive. He got hurt the year before, but made it through a whole season last year. And let's be honest, the guy is very accurate, 4,000 plus yards passing, led the league in passing yards. He operated the highest scoring offense in the NFL last year. When it comes to Tua, what does the data tell you about his trajectory, and can he keep this up?
Like you said, it's tough to tell probably trajectory just by his numbers, just because he missed, the 11 games or he only played 11 games, I think, the year before or something along those lines. And when you play in a Mike McDaniel offense, it's sort of otherworldly. It's different from playing in any other offense he was in previously. So he's going to put up big numbers. I think as long as he stays healthy, that offense, Mike McDaniel just does such a good job of playing to his strengths. Tua's a timing and rhythm quarterback. He's an anticipation thrower. He might be the best anticipation thrower in the game right now, or at least he's up there, 1, 2, or 3 with, Joe Burrow, perhaps. Brock Purdy's up there as well. But the offense is geared around making sure that he stays in rhythm, and they do that with all that motion they use. That allows free releases off the line. It makes the defense more predictable. It allows them to break down the coverage with their different concepts. But the biggest thing is the free releases off the line. When there's no disruption at the line of scrimmage, the play's timing can stay intact. And that is critical for Tua because when he can get rid of the ball inside of 2.5 seconds, I think the numbers last year where he had 105 or so passer rating, which was fifth in the NFL. And then when he has to hold on the ball for more than 2.5 seconds, I think he dropped off to about 19th in the NFL. So you saw towards the end of last year, some of the better defenses, better schematic defenses, the Bills, the Chiefs, certainly, they would do things to disrupt Tua, to find ways to disrupt the timing of the passing game, whether it was jamming receivers who weren't in motion, whether it was using disguise, rerouting however they could. I look back at the Chiefs playoff game, and I think his interception on the second drive or so, the Chiefs ran a coverage where they started in 2 shell, 2 safety look. started to rotate down, and it looked like he was going to have man coverage on the outside to Tyreek Hill. And then they went back out to another 2-shell look, and that left Tyreek Hill double teamed, but Tua looked there. And once his first read wasn't open, I wouldn't say he panicked, but he got a little frenetic, lost his feet a little bit. And, when he made the throw to his second or third receiver, the ball sailed and he threw an interception. Saw the same thing in week 18 against the Bills, the game sealing interception. Receiver he was targeting was rerouted just a bit off course. And, Tua, again, if he's throwing with anticipation and timing, he's getting rid of that ball well before the receivers break. That certainly disrupted that particular play, led to an interception. Even the Eccles pick six on the Black Friday game last year, the Jets didn't necessarily do anything special, but Tua had to go from his first read to his second read, and that just seemed to throw him off. He made an inaccurate throw. The ball sailed. He was a little late with his timing. So, he's a product of that system, which might be why you see the hesitation with the Dolphins maybe to give him that contract. Although who knows, maybe they'll give it to him tomorrow after I say that. But he's got very particular set of skills. To quote Liam Neeson and Taken, he's got a very particular set of skills, and it works for that offense with Mike McDaniel. I just don't know. I have no reason to believe he won't put up the same type of numbers this year. It's just a matter of what can they do once they get into those critical games, those playoff games, and so on and so forth. They did add Odell Beckham Jr., which even though he's not quite what he was a few years back, maybe they use him as the X receiver. So if Tua's not sure of what he's seeing in the middle of the field, he has a one-on-one matchup he can feel comfortable with, at least to get some completions. But, I see no reason for him to not have a big year just because that offense is so explosive with the receivers they have, and McDaniel knows how to use them. And their running game that no one talks about. Really good running game, and they're going to have explosive players on the ground with Mostert and Achane. So I don't see them going anywhere necessarily on offense. So it's all about keeping Tua upright, keeping him healthy.
Okay, all right. So when it comes to Tua, right? You said things, and I see you in the audience, Dan. You appreciate, man, the love. Yeah, I mean, again, I have heard some Dolphins fans tell me that he is that dude. He's the best. They've compared him to Patrick Mahomes. They've compared him to Lamar Jackson and to some of the big dogs in the game, and that's fine. He did outplay them in terms of stats last year.
Yeah.
But again, I'm glad you're being honest, right? I think Tua, definitively, you can't argue it. He's a top 10 guy in the NFL right now at worst, right? I think the way he's able to go ahead and operate in this offense, as much as I hate to admit it as a Jets fan, it's impressive. It's impressive. Now, like you said before, throwing him off timing is probably going to be your best bet, but getting rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds, it's going to be hard to get to a quarterback. Like if that first read gets open or the development of the play is for him to get rid of the ball in that time frame, it's hard to stop that. And everybody thinks you can just put anybody behind center and they could do that. I don't know if that's the case. I think that you're going to need a person who wants to depend more so on being more timing based or more anticipatory than a guy who wants to go ahead and just play, backyard football. A lot of these guys trust their arm a lot and they feel like they need to get out to extend plays. I think you need a specific kind of quarterback to do what Tua is doing. So I've given respect to Tua. I didn't think he could make it through a whole year healthy. I thought that was the biggest question mark, really. Last year he proved he could do that. So Dan, I appreciate you coming on. But I will say this: there's some of your fan base will sit here and tell us that he is better than Mahomes, or at least he's on par with Mahomes. I will go as far as to say I think Tua is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He's kind of proven that over the last couple of years when he's on the field. But I got to ask you this question, Nick. When it comes to Tua, one of the biggest things that I'm hearing a lot in regards to those who think, he should get paid, who shouldn't get paid, is that his accuracy is overrated, that his ability to go ahead and win big games is overrated because, like you just said, last year did kind of show he could get disrupted a little bit when that first read wasn't there or the timing got thrown off. There's a thing going around saying that Tua is a spot thrower. Not necessarily a guy who can throw a wide receiver open or anything like that, but he's a spot thrower. What do you think the validity to that is?
So when you say spot thrower, you mean throwing in between zones and things like that?
To a spot, right? So he's practiced repeatedly and I guess in training camp or whatever the case might be for the play. They already know they're going to go to the X receiver and two steps back, boom, throw it there. They should be there. And it's on the receiver to get to the spot. Like that he's not actually throwing anybody open. I'd have to say I've seen some tape that would kind of support this in terms of, like you said before, when the play gets disrupted, he throws the ball to where it's supposed to be at, and that sometimes can go ahead and cause some concerns with interceptions, turnovers, whatever the case might be. But do you believe he depends primarily on that, of spot throwing, vice, like you were saying before, he's anticipatory and timing-based throws?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be in line with the anticipation and timing. He hits his back foot. He knows where his receiver is supposed to be, in his route, and he's going to throw the ball to where that receiver is, as long as the coverage isn't there. So I guess, going by that definition, if you want to call him a spot thrower, I'd say that's probably true. Again, the big thing with him is timing, and Mike McDaniel, like I said, he does such a good job of creating those situations where he's going to throw with timing, even if you try to disrupt it. So, I mean, that's probably a fair thing to say. Tua didn't play that well when he, wasn't in Mike McDaniel's system. I think because, probably because he didn't have Tyreek Hill. That was, a big part of it, but, didn't have a system that sort of played to his strengths as that sort of anticipation throw. So I think that's probably an accurate characterization.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of Tua, so I feel like a lot of people, I've been on record as saying that I believe that Mike McDaniel was probably the best thing that could have happened to this man. I think Mike McDaniel, in essence, literally tailored his offense to Tua's strengths. Now, I have heard some individuals say if Mike McDaniel had a better, well-rounded quarterback, this offense could really, really be scary. Do you think Mike McDaniel is peaking at what his offense can be with having Tua, or is there another layer that we don't see him being able to reach because Tua is his quarterback?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure Mike McDaniel even knows that there's another level, because I mean the timing component of what Tua does is important for Mike McDaniel's system. And, obviously he comes from Shanahan. Shanahan, I think, had a little bit of that with Jimmy Garoppolo. He certainly has that now with Brock Purdy. And he tried to go out and get a quarterback like Trey Lance, who wasn't necessarily a timing guy, was more of just a complete physical talent. And it just didn't work out because he couldn't play that way.
Right.
Or at least at that point in his career, he couldn't. So, for McDaniel, I don't know if he thinks that he could do better with a different quarterback. And I know this is kind of the predicament that the Dolphins are in, right? What more could you do if you had a more physically gifted quarterback like a Josh Allen, for the sake of example? Would that offense hum anymore? Well, Allen isn't quite as good of a timing and rhythm passer, so not exactly sure. But that really is a situation they're in, because you probably can find other quarterbacks, the Kirk Cousins types, the Brock Purdy types, not that they're available, who could play well in that system and be a lot cheaper. It's just a matter of, well, where is that guy right now? That they're sort of in a window right now. They 2 straight years where they lost in the playoffs. That seems to be where they're having their hang up. When it comes to negotiating the contract or whatever, they probably don't want to give Tua that level of money. Probably don't think he commands that necessarily based on the system creating so much, but where else are they going to go?
That's a good point, right? That's a good point. And I think that right now, in a lot of ways, I think Tua does kind of hold a lot of the leverage in terms of this contract negotiations. Again, I'm hoping Tua gets paid $60 million a year. I really am. I'm on board with paying that man $60 million a year. Again, not because I don't think he's a good quarterback, but I also believe he's a huge product of the weapons around him. And if you pay him $60 million a year, I believe you take away the Tyreek Hills, and that's going to hurt a little bit, right? Maybe that slows him down a little bit. So I'm on team pay Tua. I hope the Dolphins figure it out and give that man his bag. The market is the market. I want y'all to pay Tua. We got a question from Dano. Is Tua elite? He says, of course, the answer is, what's the temperature out there? So again, you've seen the stat lines, right, in terms of Tua playing in warm environments, dome environments. He does put up some ridiculous numbers. But when the temperature starts to go ahead and dip a little bit, and as we know, it's football, you're going to have to play some outside games in November, December, January. He struggles more. Like, do you think that is something that he could potentially, overcome? Do you think there is an issue with him playing in colder temperatures, or is that just over exaggerated? How do you take it?
Probably. I mean, he didn't look very good in last year's cold temperature game. That was a pretty unusual game, though. I don't think he's going to, find himself in too many more games like that throughout his career. It's sort of a rare circumstance. Can't say he played very well. I mean, he doesn't have a power arm that can cut through in those bad weather situations. And if you get in a bad weather game and the timing and rhythm is off, that would be the reason why he would be struggling, right? It's because he kind of doesn't have that other element where, he can run around or, he can say to hell with it. I'm just, going to chuck it downfield like Josh Allen does sometimes. So, I mean, small sample size right now, it again, all depends on the type of game plan they have. Mike McDaniel could certainly cook something up, I'm sure, the next time they play in a cold weather game where, he doesn't have to push the ball downfield, and he could certainly perform well. But yeah, I would probably prefer a stronger arm quarterback, a bigger, more physical guy in those types of conditions. But I know I'm not alone there.
Okay, fair enough. I will say this: you brought up a good point in regards to Mike McDaniel, right? Like I noticed that in the playoffs, they kind of went away from the run game, who I thought was a huge component to their success offensively last year. Do you think there's some level of, I don't know, they need to see Tua do it, or they want to push Tua to do it, or they want to win a game off of Tua's arm? Because I felt like going away from the running game when the defense, no matter what Dolphins fans tell me, they're gonna talk about how they were hurt, this, that, and the other. For one, it's a playoff game; everybody's injured, banged up, etc. But the defense did a really good job keeping that game close, and they went away from the run game, which I didn't understand. Do you think there's some kind of pressure to go ahead and put it on Tua's shoulders to win these games, or was that just a fault by McDaniel and just kind of dropping the bag and remembering he's got two elite running backs he could have put out there?
Yeah, I think they had trouble running the ball early against the Chiefs in that game, and that got them behind the chains. And I think that's when Tua's first interception happened, on maybe that second drive or so. When you're in 3rd and long, that's when the defense can do all its fancy stuff. And Steve Spagnuolo is obviously known for doing that. He actually in their earlier game in Germany, I think it was like week 9, their first drive, they hit a 3rd and 10. He brought a corner blitz that, Tua didn't see. They orchestrated it perfectly off of the Dolphins' motion. They had Chris Jones set to one side. They got the protection that way. Tua was looking towards the motion and away from the corner blitz. And like, that's the type of stuff that you can do on 3rd down. And Spagnuolo is known for doing. So I think in that game, it was, all right, we've quickly established that we aren't running the ball well early down, so no sense in just sticking with it just because we need to run the ball. I think you saw the Ravens kind of have a similar issue in the AFC Championship game where they had a couple early down plays where they tried to run it and they couldn't get much, and so they just put everything on Lamar's shoulders to try to throw them to the Super Bowl. And I think they abandoned the run as well against the Chiefs. So probably more of a one game specific thing and not a we're trying to, put anything on Tua's shoulders or prove that he can do it, that sort of thing.
Okay. Fair enough. Appreciate that. All right. So we've talked about Josh Allen and we've talked about freaking Tua. Let's talk about somebody that I think the majority of my audience is going to really, really, really care about, right? So the New York Jets acquired freaking Aaron Rodgers via trade year before last. And there was a lot of hype, a lot of hyperbole in regards to what this man was going to do for our franchise. There was excitement. There was Super Bowl predictions. There was a lot of ongoing confidence in what the team was going to look like. He got injured. Aaron Rodgers gave us 4 snaps, got injured. One of the most demoralizing instances of watching a football game I've ever had in my entire life. A whole fan base literally deflated within a 4-snap period for the Jets on opening night. I digress. Aaron Rodgers has played football prior to that. We've seen the man play in Green Bay. There's a lot of conversations about what he looked like when he was leaving Green Bay last year. So he's officially 2 years removed from a full season. He had one of his worst seasons as a professional, even though it was still a top 10 stat-wise season. What does the data support about his age and his last full season in the league? And do you see it being an issue for Aaron Rodgers going into his, I think, year 21st season in the league?
Well, I mean, he didn't show up for mandatory minicamp, so
there goes the season. It's a wrap.
We probably just move on to the Patriots quarterbacks now if you want to. So. Yeah, I mean, and a good stat about the mandatory minicamp. I think in 2011 there was a lockout, so there was no mandatory minicamp. 2020 there was COVID, no mandatory minicamp. 2021, Aaron Rodgers didn't go to mandatory minicamp because he was beefing with the Packers brass. He won the MVP all 3 seasons, so that tells you how important mandatory minicamp is. I mean, you see coaches cancel the last day of practice of the 2 or 3 day schedule all the time. Now, of course, I want my quarterback at everything, but I think people are just making this such a big deal out of nothing, and it's Aaron Rodgers. We're in a dead time of the season. So I think he'll be just fine despite missing the mandatory minicamp. That being said, the 2022 season, so he won the MVP in 2020 and 2021. 2022, they completely revamped the receiving core in Green Bay, added a guy like Sammy Watkins, who just was completely done at that point. The first half of that season, I think all their new receivers, from Christian Watson to Sammy Watkins, and even some of the guys that Rodgers relied on, they missed a ton of time. They missed games, actually playing. They missed practice leading up to games. So people talked about the chemistry. Every week that season was just, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have chemistry with his new receivers because he didn't show up to OTAs and that sort of stuff. And really it's because those guys missed time during training camp and missed time during the season. And Rodgers had a broken right thumb on his throwing hand that entire season. So he had some uncharacteristic misses that year that the only conclusion I can have is that it was because his thumb was not allowing him to get the right feel on the ball that season. And he still had a decent statistical season, like you said. I would anticipate seeing something between that season and what you saw the year before in 2021. He doesn't need to be an MVP for this team. But if you think about it, he's still probably as accurate as any quarterback in the league. He's definitely the most experienced and therefore probably the smartest of any quarterback in the league in terms of what he sees and coverage recognition, et cetera. I think you have to assume his mobility might take a hit with the Achilles injury coming back from it, although he was starting to sort of phase out that element of his game anyway. So as long as that offensive line can keep him upright, he's going to be able to pick apart coverages and get the ball to the right place. So I love what they did with the offensive line. They didn't just, get after it in the free agency period. They doubled down with, their first draft pick. Because they can't have any games this year where they're going to be left with a tackle missing time. And, then they have some, replacement level player coming in and then the offense gets completely stymied. So I think they're in good shape with that offensive line. And, I have no reason to believe that Aaron Rodgers won't kind of be in that, like I said, 2021 to 22, somewhere in between that, assuming he can stay healthy.
So when it comes to Rodgers, in terms of what he brings to the table, right? A lot of individuals talk about his age. He's 40 years old, and that statistically speaking, you haven't seen a quarterback really win anything outside of Brady at that particular age range. Is there any concerns about his age when it comes to his being 40 years old that you look at as somebody who can evaluate the talent that he brings to the table?
Just the mobility. I mean, he can still throw it. Even with that thumb injury, the velocity he could get on the ball, he could fit the ball in the tight windows. Again, he just didn't do it as consistently as he did throughout his career during that 2022 season. And that's where I think the thumb came into play. But that my concerns would be that, maybe again, that mobility, his ability to evade pass rushers, because it's going to happen. He's not going to be clean the entire season. So that would be my only concern. But, the thing that Rodgers is going to add is getting them into a good look on every single play. Based on what the defense is doing, whether that's just running the ball and they get a 3-yard gain, maybe that would have been a loss or a 0-yard gain, whatever the case may be. He's going to set the protection in the right way. He's not going to be fooled by the defense. He doesn't turn the ball over. And one of the best things he does is he attacks those ISO routes on the outside. And I think that's one of the big elements of his intelligence is he generally knows what the defense is doing. He's seen everything, so he can see what they're going to be bringing, if they're bringing pressure, what sort of coverage disguise they're bringing. If he's not sure, he just goes to the outside and he can pick an ISO route and put it exactly where he wants to. If he sees a one-on-one, there's always a throw to beat the coverage. That's what you saw with Devontae Adams when they had that, that run in Green Bay. Maybe we'll see it now with Garrett Wilson, but perhaps Mike Williams, is that true boundary X, that big body that he can just get the ball to when he's not sure, what the defense is doing. I think you're going to see a lot of that, and we won't even know that it's a great play that Rodgers made because it's all happening at the line of scrimmage. It's all him getting into the right look.
Ooh, okay. So in terms of his supporting cast, right? So I've been on record as well as saying that Aaron Rodgers does not need to be MVP Aaron Rodgers for the New York Jets to go ahead and be a force this year. A lot of individuals that want to debate that say, Aaron Rodgers is washed. He's no longer the MVP. And I ask myself, like, what does a washed Aaron Rodgers looks like? So, a washed Aaron Rodgers in your mind, based off of, again, understanding the position as well as you do, um, what would that look like? What do you think the floor is for a guy like Aaron Rodgers this season if he's able to stay on the field for the entire season?
I mean, I think that 2022 season is as bad as it would get for him. He turned the ball. He threw 12 interceptions that year, which is very rare for him. Like I said, there were those missed throws that were just where did that come from? If I remember correctly, there's a Thursday night game against the Titans where he missed a bunch of third and fourth down throws when guys were wide open right in front of him, and that's that's the type of stuff you see Zach Wilson do. You don't see Aaron Rodgers do. And he was doing that. So clearly there was something up. As far as a washed level season, I mean, I can't imagine, him having more than 10 interceptions. I think that's sort of the baseline. Maybe he doesn't take as many chances. I think the criticism of Rodgers over the years has been, he can be too careful. So, maybe you see something in the low 20s at the in touchdown passes, 3,700 yards. That would probably be, lowest level for him. But even that compared to what the Jets got last year would be a massive improvement. And, you can look at this Jets team last year. They had 4 games with Zach Wilson starting, Trevor Siemian starting, where they lost by 1 possession and didn't score any points or made terrible mistakes down the stretch. They would have easily won those games, or maybe not easily, but definitely won those games if Rodgers was playing. That makes their record, instead of 7-10, they'd be 11-6, and that was the 2 seed last year. So that's how close this team is, around Rodgers. I mean, that defense is I expect them to be humming this year. They'll be playing with some leads, which is going to be completely different for them, and going to change their how much they see the run and their ability to sort of pin their ears back and get after the passer. They don't allow a lot of big plays, so they're. Even if the Jets are sort of struggling on offense, they're going to keep them in the game and keep things close. And it won't be the disaster that we saw on offense last year. And they still won 7 games when that happened. So I don't get the doubts of the Jets at least being a good, competent football team. I think I saw PFT had them as like the 25th ranked roster in the NFL a couple of days ago. That's ridiculous. That's
Florio has some beef with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, so we don't take him seriously anymore around these parts. But again, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and even if you think Rodgers is going to be vintage Rodgers or anything close to it, the rest of the roster is really good.
So now that you mentioned that, right? So let's say Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, knock on wood, has to miss some time. How do you feel about Tyrod? This is a Jet show. So again, I didn't ask about the backups for the Dolphins or the Bills, but this is a Jet show. So Tyrod Taylor being QB2, you stated that last year, seeing some of those games, we should have won more with competent QB play just because the defense was just elite. How do you see Tyrod Taylor if he was to come in and have to go ahead and get a couple of games in for the Jets this year?
I think you said it perfectly there. He can be a competent quarterback for them. He can definitely be a filler. Now, if knock on wood, because I don't want to see it happen either, if Rodgers goes down for the year, I mean, it doesn't matter who your backup is, you're screwed. But if it's a short period of time, it's a few games, Tyrod Taylor can absolutely hold his own. Like I said, he's a competent guy. He's not going to throw with timing. You're not going to do the same things that Aaron Rodgers is going to do. He does have the ability to run, has the ability to scramble. Maybe you see more, boots and things like that. But he'll keep the offense on schedule. I think it's a good move to sign him. It's definitely a reaction to everything that happened last year. You're sort of rearranging deck chairs in the Titanic if he goes down for the year. But if you just need to fill some gaps throughout the course of the season, he's as good as there could be as a backup around the league. And he adds a different element. He gives defense something different to prepare for. So,
okay, all right, love that. You know what? We're going to keep it going. It's the Jets, right? Again, Jet show. So after our boy Tyrod, we got freaking Travis Jordan, an FSU quarterback. Jordan Travis, FSU quarterback. How do you feel about Jordan Travis? I haven't seen him play at FSU and what he brings to the table.
So I actually, I'll be honest, I did not watch a lot of his tape, or any of his tape this year, because when he was coming out, I was focused more on the sort of the top quarterbacks. So
gotcha.
they seem pretty high from what I hear. They seem him as a developmental project, and that seems exactly what he should be at this point.
Fair enough. I was trying to go ahead and sneak another one in there. Appreciate
All
you. All right. Okay, so we talked about Josh Allen. We talked about Tua, and of course Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor. There's another team in the AFC East that the majority of individuals have kind of like to the wayside, as they are now in complete rebuild mode, right? And that's the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, they've got Drake May or Jacoby Brissett. And in all actuality, does the data speak to the Patriots having an NFL starting quarterback on their roster?
Yeah, I look, Brissett. It seems like he'll play at the beginning. He's been perfectly fine wherever he's been as a sort of a stopgap player. He played in Cleveland a couple of years ago and played probably just as well as Deshaun Watson ended up playing when he came in. So he's sort of like Tyrod Taylor. You can get some competent quarterback play out of him. The issue is that the Patriots just they don't have a great offensive line still. They don't have a lot of explosive weapons. We don't know what they're going to be on offense. It's not an ideal situation for Drake May. So I think you'll see Brissett start at the beginning of the year, and they'll find a way to work Drake May in. I personally was not as high on May as a lot of people were. I think he's he's very raw as a quarterback, and when it comes to processing, decision making, ability to play with timing, there was a lot of questions on his tape last year. My biggest concern though is ball placement and pocket instincts. He missed a lot of layup throws that you can't miss in the NFL. And I don't see quarterbacks generally get better with their accuracy or ball placement as they get into the NFL. It can happen. I think Josh Allen is probably one of those examples of a guy who did improve. It's just sort of not the norm, right? And you can improve mechanics, you can improve throwing motions a little bit. His pocket movement is what scares me a lot as well. His instincts, the way he perceives pressure, he overreacts to pressure in the pocket. In college, you have these wider pockets. There's a lot more space. You don't have as many fierce pass rushers. You have a lot more mismatches on the offensive line versus defensive line, depending on the opponent. So you're going to get a lot more time, a lot more space in college. And whenever he had just a little bit of the pocket condensing around him, he would react as if it was sort of immense pressure. And that's a pocket you're going to see on almost every single snap in the NFL. So if you can't function there, that's going to be a problem. He drifts towards his throws. He sort of moves into pressure sometimes and creates his own pressure even when he has a clean pocket. So he's got a lot to clean up. That's not just mechanics; it's more instinctual. And the habits that he's developed at this point, I don't think you're going to break those habits when you're playing behind an offensive line that isn't great and you don't have receivers to throw to. I think Sam Darnold is probably a great example of that. 2018, he looked pretty good towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
I know he had that little bit of a lull, and it was like, all right, maybe he sort of figured some things out. Then he came back in 2019, had the mono, started seeing ghosts, and the habits that he developed as a result of having to run for his life on every play and not having quick outlets to get the ball to because no one could get open. That that kind of derailed his career.
Yeah, listen, I was a big Sam Darnold fan as well. I watched him live. The comeback game against the Cowboys. I'm not gonna lie to you. I became a fan in that game. I liked him before that. I've never been a big fan of USC quarterbacks, but I started to like Sam. I loved him after watching that game against the Cowboys. And then he, like you said, fell off of a cliff. I mean, again, those habits do accumulate, and over time, that was just enough to go ahead and he's getting a couple of shots elsewhere, right? So good luck to him. But with Drake May, I think you nailed it on the head.
He's getting a good system in Minnesota this year. He's got a great situation, and that was actually coming in the draft. It was one of the things I was wondering is if Drake May goes to Minnesota, maybe that would be the place for. I mean, it'd be the place for any quarterback, but that would be a good place for him to work out those bad habits behind a good offensive line, a great system. Justin Jefferson, that would have been a great situation. But we could see Sam Darnold, first half of the year having a decent run at it.
Yeah, listen, I like the kid. I do. And I do feel like we didn't do nearly enough to go ahead and support him. But I'm interested to see, what I'm saying, like if you can go ahead and revitalize his career. Minnesota is a good spot. You got the number one wide receiver in all of football at your disposal. That's going to be fun
Yeah.
if you're a quarterback that needs to get rid of the ball quickly. So we'll see. We'll see if he can go ahead and develop. But with Drake May, I couldn't agree with you more, man. I don't understand the hype. Everything I saw about this kid, I literally started calling Drake May a bigger Zach Wilson. He
Mhm.
looks like a bigger Zach Wilson to me, right? Strong arm guy. He's very athletic and mobile. Decision making is non existent. He gets really happy feet. And for me, it was the missed layups. Just watching him miss the
Yeah.
check downs and with a clean pocket around him, just driving the ball either over the head or he's throwing it too hard. I'm like, this guy has no touch to his freaking passes.
Right.
Like, what are they talking about? To me, I saw him and I saw a bigger Zach Wilson. But I think you're right. I think the reason why he got so much love is because he does give you that Josh Allen-esque kind of feel, right? Kind of raw, but he's got those tangible like skill sets. Big, strong kid, really awesome kid too. Like great character guy. He's athletic. I think people are betting on them being able to develop that. But like you said, Josh Allen was more of an anomaly, not the rule. You don't usually see guys come out of college and get better in the league. So
Right.
I think
And the difference, and sorry to cut you off.
you're good.
The difference there is that I think when it comes to talent, I've heard the comparisons to Josh Allen. I don't think Drake May is close when it comes to physical talent. I mean, he's a talented guy. I'll definitely give you that. I think he's like 6'4", just a big dude, good athlete for his size. But I don't see him as quite the dynamic runner that Josh Allen is. You're going to be running design QB runs with him.
Yeah,
doesn't have as strong of an arm or sort of as fluid of a motion that it looks natural. Ball can come out, etc. I heard comparisons of Justin Herbert as a thrower. I think Herbert's well above him as far as physical talent as well. Yeah. So he's a talented guy, but I mean, you're probably looking at what, bottom of the top 10 in terms of talent, and that to me is not necessarily worth it given how raw he is. Like if Josh Allen was coming out in this draft, I'd say yeah, go take him. Anthony Richardson last year, he's dynamic. He's a freak. And you can live with the fact that he's raw. And actually, I was just looking at my notes the other day. I had the same notes on him that I had on Drake May, with the only difference being, he's so physically gifted that, you can kind of throw away a little how raw he is and say, all right, we can work with it. And, obviously Shane Steichen, that system in Indianapolis, what he did with Jalen Hurts, he's got a more talented Jalen Hurts, this year with the Colts. So we'll see what they do. But I know this is an AFC South podcast.
But no, I'm glad it's the AFC. We're going to go ahead and break that down on the back end, right? But I'm not gonna lie to you. Like when I saw the coaching change, I thought to myself, Anthony Richardson might have been the biggest thing for his development in terms of having a guy that worked with Jalen Hurts, and I think has helped develop Jalen Hurts into what he is today.
Mm-hmm.
But a significantly more gifted individual in Anthony Richardson. I'm actually worried about what Anthony Richardson might be with proper coaching. It is very concerning for me being in the AFC.
Yeah.
All right. So do you think it's going to be Drake May, or do you think it's going to be Jacoby Brissett that actually starts for the Patriots, or do you see a combination of the two?
It seems like it'd be a combination. I mean, if it were me, it's obviously not. I would have Brissett start the year simply because I wouldn't want May to have those continue to develop those habits or solidify those bad habits. I'm generally a guy that wants my quarterback to play right away, rookie. That there's no substitute for getting reps within the pocket and seeing the field from that vantage point. But only if you're ready and only if it's a good situation. I think he would benefit from watching it first, trying to iron out some of those mechanical things. But again, it's not going to be easy. If it was easy for him to just fix his mechanics so quickly, he would have already done it. So, I think it'll be Brissett to start. I think the Patriots have a tough schedule to start the year, so it might be a situation where they're 0-4, 1-5, and then all the fans are getting restless and calling for Drake May to play, and then he comes into that point. But it seems like we'll have Brissett to start.
Okay, all right. So then that's the AFC East quarterbacks, right? So let's talk about how you would rank these guys from top to bottom, and why you see them being ranked as such.
Yeah, so if we're just going, you mean rank them just in the AFC East, not where they're in the
we'll do the AFC after. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll go Josh Allen 1, Aaron Rodgers 2 or 3, and then Patriots quarterback 4.
Right.
Allen again, he's so talented and he's in his prime. Rodgers is, I still expect him to be top of his game. Again, not MVP form, but still really good. And Tua he's perfect for that system, but he's really is a beneficiary of that system.
Okay. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So how would you see them in terms of actually, hold on. Let me rephrase that. So, in terms of predictions as to what their stat lines might look like, you can just give me a broad, numbers for each over a full season of the AFC East. So everybody's healthy. How do you see them potentially stacking up? You know what I'm saying in terms of a prediction.
As far as who has the best stats of the group now,
Stat lines, yeah.
Better, yeah. Interestingly enough, I think Tua is going to have the best numbers, despite being the third best quarterback. Josh Allen, Rodgers. I'll give Allen the nod on the actual numbers, just because there's also that running component. Like I said, he had 51 touchdowns in total last year. So, but Rodgers will be close behind him when it comes to passing. And then obviously the Patriots quarterbacks. I mean, who cares?
Man, I like you, Nick. We're gonna have to get you on again.
Well, I'm a Giants fan, and all my friends are Patriots fans, so I would be enjoying the time a lot better right now, but the Giants have also been garbage for about a decade.
It's been rough. It's been rough. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like my cousin and I got fans that are Giants fans as well, so they've been going through it, man. Like the Malik Neighbors, I think was an incredible draft pick. I really like Malik Neighbors and what he can bring to the table. But I got to ask you, what I'm saying? I know, again, AFC conversation, but how do you feel about Daniel Jones as your starting quarterback? I'm actually kind of curious.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I'm actually doing a top 32 quarterbacks countdown right now because we're in the dead season of the NFL offseason. And he was my number 24th guy today. I actually wrote about him today. Okay. There's some good football in there. He actually has some. It's going to sound funny to say this, but some of the best performances in NFL history. His playoff debut, he was the first quarterback to throw for, I believe it was 300 yards for 2 touchdowns and rush for 70 in one game. His rookie year, he set a bunch of records as well. I think he's been, he's not an elite quarterback. Obviously, there are some great performances in there. I think he's been hamstrung by having just a terrible offensive line, and he hasn't had a weapon like Malik Neighbors to throw to his entire career. I think again he can be competent. I'm really curious to see how they do this year because they beefed up the interior of their offensive line where they need help. They have an option if Evan Neal continues to struggle at right tackle, and we'll see. I know that's not really an answer on how I feel about Daniel Jones being my quarterback, but running was such a component of what he does, and coming back from an ACL, I could see a little bit of a hang up there, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he finally has a weapon to throw to, and he might have a line that can protect him. So if he does that, I think he could be a middle of the pack quarterback, maybe somewhere in that 14 to 18 range at best. But for most of his career, he's unfortunately been sort of a bottom 10 guy with few exceptions here and there.
Okay, fair enough. So I got to ask this: would you be in the ballpark of wanting to suck for the next Manning?
Went well with the last one, right? So we'll take another Manning.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Archie Manning, I've been following him for a while because, again, the Jets being in quarterback hell, I've just kind of assumed by the time he came out, we'd be in the perfect position to nab him up. But I don't know, man. I'm loving how he's not getting enough love right now at Texas with the quarterback controversy.
Yeah.
But every time that kid has stepped on the field, he's balled out. So I don't really understand what the disconnect is. I would take a chance.
What's the ETA to the NFL? Is he?
I think it's 2 years out. 2 years out before we get declared. Yeah.
I feel like we're going to miss him because if we're maybe not. Maybe that's incentive to be good this year. So you push things out one more year, and then Giants will collapse the year after, and inevitably they'll get rid of everybody.
Wow, suck for Manning. All right,
we'll see.
Like I said, the Mannings have played some really good football in the NFL, so I'll take a protege. Give him the opportunity.
We'll definitely take it.
All right, so we've talked about the AFC East guys. You've kind of racked them up in terms of what they look like in the AFC East. But as a whole, it doesn't really matter, right? We're competing against AFC components to get to the playoffs, of course, get to the AFC championship game. When you look at the AFC East quarterbacks and knowing the AFC quarterbacks as a whole, Where do you rank and stack these guys up in terms of the AFC?
That's a good question. I mean, the AFC is loaded with quarterbacks right now. I think on my my top 32 list that I'll be revealing, it's mostly AFC guys towards the top. I think I'm going to end up with Josh Allen as number 2 or 3 guy in the NFL, which would put him at 2 or 3 in the AFC. I actually have Rodgers as like up there as number 6, 7 range.
Okay.
In the NFL, which again would put him as 5 or 6 in the AFC. You've got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Stroud, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. Those are probably the only guys have ahead of him right now. Maybe I'm missing someone. Did I say Burrow? I think I said Burrow. Burrow should be on there, obviously.
So you know what? I'm glad you brought up Burrow real quick before you continue. So Burrow is beloved. It seems like he gets a lot of love, a lot of accolades, right? But this is a guy who's only really played one full season in the NFL. And I get it. That one full season, he took Patrick Mahomes, to the wire. And I understand the appeal there. But outside of that, right, and even during that time, they talked about Burrow being one of the top guys in terms of yak yardage. So a lot of his supporting cast helped him, of course, get to where he was at. And I get the offensive line being so terrible that he was able to do it in constant pressure, which also kind of gave him a bump up. But when you look at Burrow, like what is the love, I guess you can say, from a lot of analysts who look at him and think like this kid is him?
Yeah, and I'm one of those. I love Burrow, and the reason is for kind of the opposite of all the things I said about Drake May. Just as far as he can anticipate, knows where to go with the ball, makes great decisions, can play within the pocket, and his ability to play within a collapsing pocket and sort of throw out of a phone booth. It was on display that year they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, they had a terrible offensive line, and so many of those completions were just created by his ability to throw with bodies around him and to throw with anticipation, and that's creating completions. That's sort of the special stuff that goes above and beyond the system you're in, the players you're playing with. So that is probably that's what I react to, and that's what I would think that other people would react to when it comes to Burrow. Obviously, he's got great weapons, but one thing I will say is just when I watched him in 2020 before they had Chase, and they had a terrible offensive line, he ended up getting hurt. You could just see it on film, just the way he played within rhythm, and it really excelled even when there were just bodies around him, throwing out of a hole, throwing out of a phone booth. He was outstanding in that capacity. And now that they have a little bit better of an offensive line, and that system's coming to, they're all sort of familiar with each other and everything. Again, if he didn't have an injury last season, they looked like they were about to take off again and make another run.
Do you think we should be concerned about this injury history now? It just seems like now his wrist apparently popped up as something to be concerned about. That
was a weird injury. I don't know. Right. They both seem like they're just individual, completely separate injuries. So yeah. I hate making any sort of determination like that, because sometimes the injuries they really are random freak occurrences. Although I sort of don't. Where did he actually hurt his wrist? There had to be a moment where he hurt it. And then we saw it in the Thursday night game when he made a throw, and it kind of came up.
It looked weird. Yeah, and nobody would tell us. Nobody could tell us. It was never brought up as to when it happened, how it happened. But like it just seemed like, well, is this something that's degenerative, like something like nerve or but like what is that? Because like he didn't hit it on anything. They didn't tell us that he hit it on anything. None of the replays showed anything. So it's had me wondering about it.
I sort of remember that week. I think there may have been an injury report where he was suddenly listed on it, and then he was taken off. There was some kind of weird circumstances before that game about him having his right elbow injured, and that put him on the injury list. But he disappeared. But then that game happened, and he obviously was done for the season. So don't know exactly. Yeah, they're keeping that close to the vest.
Okay, very well. Fair enough. All right, so you talked about Josh Allen. You talked about Aaron Rodgers. You got those guys in that top 6 to 8 range. Where would you put Tua?
I have him top half of the NFL. I have him between probably 10 and 15, 10 and 16, somewhere in there.
All right. We don't care about the Drake May or Jacoby Brissett. They're really not to me.
I had him at 31 right now. Just
okay.
Rookie. If he does play, he's not going to be great right away, right? Okay. I'm not saying I hate sort of ripping on the guy. He could eventually develop into something. Definitely, it's just a matter of how long is that going to take. certainly I don't expect anything from him immediately.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So we got a question from Daniel Meehan, right? And he says, if Tua is the beneficiary of a system, is Purdy the beneficiary of a system too? I'm gonna say yes, but I'll let you take that, Nick.
Yeah, I think they're very similar quarterbacks. And as I was saying earlier, I think I have Tua, Joe Burrow, and Purdy as sort of top anticipators in the game. Purdy sort of functions the same way. Purdy, he's got a little bit more mobility, which you saw on display in the NFC Championship game when things weren't really working. That's kind of the element that Tua hasn't really shown the ability to play, above the X's and O's or outside of the system when things break down. So Purdy has a little bit more of that, but yeah, they're very, very similar players, and it's no shock that both are coming from, I guess, Shanahan type systems.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I look at and people will have asked that before, and I was just like, yeah, I think Tua and Brock Purdy are pretty much interchangeable in those systems. I think, like, again, I'm not saying everybody can play in that offense the way it's designed to a T. You've seen again, the 49ers take a gamble on, I forget the kid's name, big arm.
Trey Lance, yeah.
Yeah, Trey Lance, right? Big arm kid, athletic, and he just couldn't figure it out, right? So you saw even the great Shanahan struggle to go ahead and make a quarterback look good. So whenever I hear somebody say like any quarterback can do it, I disagree. I do believe you need a quarterback that's going to be comfortable in playing within those limitations. But yeah, I think Brock Purdy and Tua are very, very similar. And that's why I asked about Joe Burrow, because I also have him in that bucket too of individuals where very anticipatory timing routes and get the ball out. Only thing with Burrow is that dude does it, pressure, no pressure. Like, that's the thing about him that's just different. His ability to go ahead and operate under pressure, taking hits is just, that's elite. That's one thing I will always give Burrow, is that man carried a team to the Super Bowl with one of the worst offensive lines in all of sports. Like, that says a lot about how he's able to go ahead and operate as a quarterback.
Yeah, and even though he's got some mobility too, but even though he's not thought of as a mobile quarterback, like he can still make plays from the pocket with his arm when the first read isn't there, when the timing of the play doesn't work out. He's very good late in the down.
Okay, cool. We got another question for you here, but this one is Giants related. Dana wants to know, what are your thoughts on Barkley and how this year could be changed to lead league in rushing, or does he have a chance to lead the league in rushing?
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason why he couldn't. I think one of the problems he had with the Giants was that line was just really
atrocious.
Wasn't very good for the last for his entire career there. So you get him with the Eagles. I know they lost Kelsey, but they're going to have a good offensive line. Who knows how much they'll run the ball with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. He sort of likes to go downfield a little bit more. Interested to see how that works out with him and Jalen Hurts, but that's probably the thing holding him back from being someone who could lead the league in rushing. But I think behind that offensive line, he's going to have a good season as long as he stays healthy too.
Yes, I'm not gonna lie to you. Seeing Saquon walk to go to literally your rival was I was like, that was the ultimate smack in the face, in my opinion. I think that was definitely, there was some purpose behind that, because I know he had a couple of other offers. He could have gone to the AFC as well, a couple of offers, but seeing him choose the freaking Eagles, I was like, there was a little bit of a jab there for him to choose the Eagles.
I'm curious to see how that went down. There's that the Giants Hard Knock series. I think it starts tonight with where the Joe Shine and seeing how everything works behind the scenes with the GM. So I heard that there was a little bit of Saquon content in there. I don't know if it's going to be in the first episode or not, but we'll find something out. Hopefully,
we'll find out. Get some more clarification as to the why. All right, Nick. I mean, again, I told you an hour. Here I am holding you past an hour, but I got a question for you, man.
Good. Yeah.
In terms of the AFC East, in terms of how you see it playing out, in Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, who makes the playoffs? Who misses the playoffs? Do you see any of these teams making the AFC Championship game per se? How do you see this? If you had to make a decision today on how do you think that plays out for us by the season's end?
I'm going with the Jets to win the division. I really am. They don't get too excited. I had the same thing last year, but obviously extenuating circumstances. But yeah, I just all around, but both sides of the ball, I think the Bills they had a lot of turnover on the defense side of the ball. They have a new defensive coordinator. He comes from their own system. It's still Sean McDermott's defense, but new players, new safeties who are sort of running that defense. Their pass rush sort of hasn't worked out like they've wanted it to, certainly with Von Miller. So, their defense could be kind of treading water, sort of trying to figure things out this year. And Dolphins will be interesting. I think Anthony Weaver is their defense coordinator now, right? He comes from Baltimore. So if they can capture what Mike McDonald was doing in Baltimore as a defensive coordinator, maybe they've got a shot defensively, but we'll see. All their pass rushers are going to be coming back from last year from injury. So who knows how explosive they'll be. I know they added a couple people, but I just think the Jets are built on both sides of the ball. Like they really don't have many weaknesses. Maybe a little bit on the back end at safety. That offensive line, the receiving core, maybe they could have gotten one more guy, but like that, you can't have great players everywhere. I think the Jets are a pretty well balanced team. Just going to come down to staying healthy. So let's put the Jets at the top of the division. I'll probably go Dolphins 2, Bills 3. Hard to say if they'll all make the playoffs because once you get into that 3 range, then it depends on the AFC is going to be very competitive this year. But I doing this as an Aaron Rodgers fan probably, but I want the Jets in the AFC Championship game with the Chiefs. They're going to stop the three-peat like the Giants did to the Niners back in 1990, and Jets are going to be down in New Orleans. There we go.
Oh man, listen, probably the best guest I've had on the show in quite some time, Nick. You just made
this tape if they don't make the playoffs. So.
I mean, listen, I look at it this way. I think everything you just said is again how I see it playing out. A lot of individuals still, it's the Bills. I get it. You got to go ahead and knock them out there. They're the ones that have run the AFC East for a while. But in all actuality, when I look at these rosters, look at these teams, I think the Dolphins having such continuity on offense, no matter how y'all want to sleep on them, man, like that's going to be a problem next year. They have continuity on offense. I'm a huge fan of McDaniel. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they've got, in my opinion, the best 1-2 punch at the wide receiver core in the league. And Raheem Mostert and the dude Akane, I don't know where the heck Akane came from last year. That kind of shocked me how good he was. But they're not to be slept on. I do believe the fight for the AFC East is going to be between the Jets and the Dolphins. I think the Bills will drop to the third place as well. I've said that. A couple of people thought I was crazy, but I'm glad. Again, we didn't pre-plan this. We didn't have a conversation before this. I specifically said, you know what? I'm going to ask you these questions on live, get the reaction to be freaking as authentic as possible. So hearing that, I'm like, wow, okay, great. Because I see the same thing. I see it's Jets, Dolphins, Bills, Patriots. And I do see the Dolphins getting into the playoffs too. I think it's going to be 2 teams from the AFC East, the division winner, and then there's going to be a wild card team. And then once you're in, anything can happen. But I too believe the New York Jets have, in my opinion, when you got a top 5 defense, a top 5 special teams, even if Aaron Rodgers is the same Aaron Rodgers from his 2022 season, that's going to be enough for a top 10 offense this season. Right. Because I also believe that freaking Breece Hall is going to be Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about him.
We didn't even talk about him. So I think that's going to be what ultimately takes it. And I got us going to the AFC Championship game, also against the freaking Kansas City Chiefs. And like I said before, it's July now, right? So if you're going to dream, this is when to do it. And I got the Jets going to the Super Bowl this year, playing the 49ers. I love the thought process. I appreciate the sentiment. And I'm going to have you on again. This was absolutely great. I don't think there's any more questions in the chat, Nick. Wait, hold on one second here. Dano, deadlier backfield. Okay. Deadlier backfield duo. Do you think it's Hurts and Barkley or Jackson and Henry? That's actually a good question.
That's a good question. I think I got to go with Jackson and Henry just because they just offer so much versatility. They can pound you, they can break one from 80 away with Lamar Jackson. So got to go with those. Got to go with those Ravens, and they were purposeful in going out and getting Derrick Henry this year. So I think they looked at that AFC Championship tape. Were like, why did we stop running it? Just because we were stymied a little bit early along the way. I think they're lean on that running game a little bit more this year.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I think when you have a combination of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, not to mention they can feed off of each other, right? You've got the lightning and the thunder, so to speak. I feel like Saquon and Jalen both have very similar running styles, if that makes any sense, right? But again, Saquon being a freak in terms of his just physical ability, but the speed of Lamar Jackson is unquestioned, and Derrick Henry is a freaking bowling ball. I would go with that duo being that top tier duo in the NFL.
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
new dimension. Yeah.
man, that's crazy. So, we, just to touch on Brees Hall, I feel like I just want to get your opinion real quick. How do you feel about the running back that is Brees Hall?
Yeah, I mean, he's. I'm probably not going to say anything any more insightful than anyone else has. He's really good. Yeah, the breakaway speed is sort of something that kind of surprises you at times, right? Especially that first game against the Bills last year just sort of came out of nowhere. But he seemed to kind of get his feet under him towards the end of last year, and I want to say I heard Rodgers mention something about them using more 12 personnel or alluding to it in some way.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a huge focal point of their offense is just leaning on the run game at times with Brees Hall.
Yeah, I think as much as I love Aaron Rodgers, that's why I keep saying I don't really believe Aaron Rodgers needs to have an MVP level to go ahead and for this team to be successful. I think Aaron Rodgers will probably have the best supporting cast he's had around him since the last time he won a Super Bowl. The defense can go ahead and get him the ball back and help keep these scores low. The running game can go ahead and ease some of the stressors he's going to deal with. I love Garrett Wilson. I think in terms of complementary wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Malachi Corley, and I'm a big fan of Tyler Conklin. I think that's also combined collectively is going to give him the best set of weapons he's had in quite some time. Aaron Rodgers to me could finish as a top 10 quarterback in the league this year, and I'll still sit here and tell you I think the Jets are going to the Super Bowl because of the supporting cast he has around him. I don't. Again, look at it. The top 5 special teams, literally top 5 defense, a top 10 offense. That's disgusting. Yeah. That's disgusting, and I think that could be enough for the Jets to go ahead and do some damage this year.
Agree.
Well, Nick, do you have any last thoughts for us, brother?
I've got no other thoughts other than I can't wait to actually get to the football season so we can stop talking about Egypt and the mandatory. I swear to God, there's a new article every single day. But for you Aaron Rodgers fans out there, on my website, I have a huge breakdown on his playoff career, his playoff performance. There's this narrative out there that he hasn't been a good playoff quarterback, and he's actually been outstanding. So I go through all the different numbers of the different situations, 2-minute, fourth quarter numbers. And, he's been a great playoff quarterback. Hopefully he is, for all your sake this year, watch, he'll probably, because I said that they'll get the number 1 seed and he'll have his worst playoff game ever, the divisional round. But go to footballfilmroom.substack.com. That's, where you'll find that article, quarterback countdowns, quarterback rankings, and then, we break a lot of stuff down on the all 22.
Man, again, Nick's got some quality stuff out there. If you're not following him on Twitter, I promise you're missing out. Jump on Twitter, follow him. I followed him again on Patreon. I dabbled around on the website as well. If you love football, if you love analytics, I mean, the breakdowns are very thorough and concise, and he breaks it down to where it's simple to understand, even if you're just a novelist when it comes to understand this stuff. Like, the way he breaks it down for you, you can look at it and be like, oh, that makes sense. So, again, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I would love to have you on again, Nick. Hopefully the next conversation we're having is training camp videos and being able to break down what you see in terms of training camp.
Yeah, actual football. But thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun, and would love to come back.
Oh, 100%. You'll be back. You have a good night, Nick.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Well, that's the show, man. So you just heard it here, man. So Nick, again, an individual who is not a Jets fan, not a Bills fan, not a Dolphins fan, not a Patriots fan, an unbiased breakdown of what the AFC East quarterbacks look like. And I'm not going to lie to you, I love what I had to hear. I purposely did not want to ask him any questions to get answers to them prior to the show. So y'all are hearing it for the first time. Listen, if Aaron Rodgers can go ahead and even be, he said himself, the floor, which was his worst season just 2 years ago. That's a top 10 stat line for the Jets. With the supporting cast around Aaron Rodgers, I do believe it's enough. Brees Hall, I think, is going to dominate this freaking year. We've all been talking about it for a while. But listen, Hard Knocks is on tonight. I know it's not the Jets, it's the Giants. I'm curious, right? We get to see football-related content, you know what I'm saying, on our TVs. So I appreciate y'all for chopping it up with me. Again, we're on the hunt to get to 2,000 subscribers. The autographed jersey that I am going to be giving away in terms of the giveaway for the first 1,000 subscribers is awesome. It's awesome. It's in there. I think once I hit like 1,600, I'll probably show y'all which jersey it is, so we can go ahead and pursue the 2,000 subscribers. But if you're watching right now, man, again, like and subscribe. I think it was 3.1K views apparently in the last 2 weeks based off of my analytics. And now 42% of you guys watching this stream right now or the show are not subscribers. I don't understand it. Like, if you're back again and you love the content, subscribe. Get your name plugged in for the New York Jets autograph jersey giveaway. I promise you, it's a stud. It's a stud. You want to get this freaking autograph jersey. So again, once we hit 2,000, we're gonna go ahead and be doing that giveaway to the first 2,000 subscribers. Whoever wins it winds up winning it. But I appreciate you guys chopping it up with me, man. Oscar, to answer your question, yes, I do have Instagram. Just type in New York Jets situation report, and I'll pop right up for you. I appreciate you guys coming on tonight, man. Nick was awesome. Again, if you're not following him, all of his content is in the description. His Twitter, his website, and his Patreon. I'm telling you, if you like analytics, if you like this if you want to nerd out, right, and go ahead and just look at football from another perspective, it's good stuff. And he has some great stuff to say about the Jets. So again, as always, go Jets. Appreciate y'all for chopping it up with me tonight. Happy 4th of July to everybody. That's coming up here in a couple of days. So if you're going to be doing fireworks, don't blow your hands up. Be safe. Don't drink and do fireworks, although most of you are going to do that anyway. But be safe out there. Enjoy the barbecues. Enjoy your family time. And then I'll see